When everyone seems to compliment you about one thing, it's probably because you're pretty good at it. And everyone seems to compliment me about my productivity. And that's probably why I've been able to scale my business from 0 to 282K in just 8 months. And it's not because there's some innate difference between you and I. It's just because I have an incredible productivity system that allows me to get the most out of my day. And in this video, I'm gonna explain to you the principles and the daily routine and systems that allowed me to scale my business so quickly so that you can copy me and do the exact same thing. But before I even go into that system, I want to prove to you that I am making the money that I'm making. So let me show you into my client tracker, which shows 282K revenue from all of the clients that I've brought in. And that is just in the last 8 months. But the first thing that I need to do before I show you into the system is explain some of the principles behind the system, because otherwise you won't understand why I do what I do. This is the most important part here, which is that there is a need to take imperfect action, because there are two types of people. You may be a perfectionist, and that is something that you should not be proud of, if you don't mind me saying, because being a perfectionist, I believe, is the single worst trait you can have in entrepreneurship. And let me explain to you exactly why your perfectionism is killing you. Because there are two types of people. There's the perfectionist, and then there's the doer. The perfectionist is someone who takes 100% action. They have to be very clear on the action they're taking, and then they get some feedback. In the same amount of time, a doer takes an 80% action, something they're kind of clear on, but not 100% certain is the best thing that they can do. And then they get feedback on it and they take a learning, and so on in the same amount of time. And you can see here that what happens is the doer gets 3 different learnings in the same time that the perfectionist gets 1 learning. And I truly believe that we are all born the same with 0 knowledge, and the person with the fastest rate of learning is the one that wins. If you think about it, that makes sense, right? So the thing about that is the doer wins every day because their 80% very quickly becomes better than the perfectionist 100%. Let me explain that one more time. The 80% of the doer, the thing that is not quite as good as the 100%, by these quick learnings becomes already better than the 100% of the perfectionist because of the learning cycles that they're going through. And that is very important to understand, because by learning and doing, you become very quickly better than someone's 100% who is taking their time. The second principle that I use comes in 2 parts, and this idea of work smart. Not heard, you've probably heard of the Pareto principle, which is this idea that 80% of the inputs, 80% of the things you do cause 20% of the outputs or results. So 80% of the actions that you take cause 20% of the money you make, or 20% of the inputs, the other 20% of the inputs, so the other 20% of the hours you put in cause 80% of the outputs, i.e. there are a few things that matter, the rest is noise. You should outsource, automate, delegate, or speed through the 80%, this useless stuff, because of the fact that you need to focus on the things that move the dial. And for me, I know that YouTube, Instagram stories, and sales calls are my zone of genius and my biggest dial mover. But in your daily routine and in your productivity system, you have to know what things you need to prioritize and what things are just noise. And that is understanding this concept of the Pareto principle. And the other thing you need to understand is the concept of bottlenecks, because there are only a few things that matter, and those things that really matter are the things that stop your business from pumping as well it does. In this diagram, you can see this is the kind of flow of movement through our business. If you think about here starts with traffic, and at the end here is like money in the bank account. So at the end of the day, what will happen is you will have one thing that will stop the flow of traffic into money, and you want to work out what that is. So for example, if you are not closing enough people on sales calls, then that's your bottleneck. If you're not getting enough views on your YouTube videos, that's your bottleneck. And nothing else matters from your bottleneck. So do not waste your time on things that don't matter for your business. That is a really important thing to understand. And again, we'll explain this productivity system and how I set up my day. So in terms of the system itself, I wanted to explain this in a basic daily routine, because we all have the same 24 hours of the day. Shout out to Molly May, please don't cancel me. But 24 hours in the day we all have, and what matters is what we do with it. So the first thing I want to do is explain what that routine actually looks like. And it all starts the night before. I'm sure you've heard this. I'm sure you've seen people bang on about this, but it is so important to plan your day the night before. Even on the whiteboard behind me here, I've written down 5 little bullet points. Let me even show you. Let me break the fourth wall. I've written 5 bullet points on here, and they are the things that I will be doing for today. And that all comes from storing everything in a central system in my Notion document, I have this to-do list, which basically has a storage of all of my tasks. If it is not in that list, it does not exist. And then what I do is I take this task list that I accumulate over time, and then in the evening, I write on the whiteboard what I'm gonna do for the next day. And all I think about in the next day is getting those tasks done. Nothing else. Everything else is noise, remember. Everything else is not worth it unless you've worked out if it's a bottleneck and if it moves the dial of your business. So that's what I do the night before. But then what I do is I set about a 6 a.m. alarm. And then what I'll do is I'll get into exercise straight away, because I believe that exercise is the best way to get the endorphins going. It gets you feeling amazing in the morning. This concept of eating the frog and doing the hardest thing first is great. And I feel awesome after exercise. So I get that exercise done from 6 till 7 a.m. And then what I'll do, and this is the most important thing of this video, is I'll get into a section of deep work. And that deep work will last from about 7 to 7:30 a.m. all the way to lunchtime, about 1 p.m. I will go into deep work. And there are a few functions of this deep work. The first is caffeine. I will normally have a coffee to keep me going. I won't eat. I'll just go straight into caffeine and try and get my brain going, not worrying about eating until later in the morning or lunchtime. Another thing I'll do is I'll make sure that I don't charge my phone. So what I'll do is when I wake up in the morning, the biggest distraction I have is going on my phone. You probably have this, like, you can't be flicking on social media because it takes your brain into other places. If you're texting your clients, if you've got team messages, if you've got things that distract you, what you'll do is your deep work will be affected by the things on your phone. So no phone, I don't charge it overnight, so it's out of charge in the morning. I don't have any meetings in the morning. And a rogue thing that I do, which I'd recommend you trying, is this idea of playing one song. I need music to keep me working well, but I only have one song, and that allows me to get into deep focus. I'll play a few songs until I find one, and then I'll just change it on Spotify and just repeat it, and I'll literally listen to that one song for like the 5 hours of deep work. And that allows me to have my brain occupied by a song, the kind of like the noise in your head telling you to stop working by a song, but it also means that my brain is not getting distracted by different songs and me thinking, oh, this is a banger, I need to add this to my playlist. So that's the way that I use that one song. It's an absolute hack. I love that one. And then what happens is I push all my meetings to the afternoon. And the thing that I do there is I make sure that every meeting that I take has a very set agenda. I ask when people book in with me so I can best prepare what is on the agenda. And I also will text people, as you can see here, that I text Alex for our lunch, asking what's on the agenda. Alex is one of my clients, by the way. And then what I'll do is I'll have some team meetings with Morgan, with Bev, my sales director and my VA. And then what I'll also do here, what's just something I'll mention, is I try and double up things. So if there's a way that I can double up eating or exercise with socializing or with seeing my clients, I'll try and do that as well, because there's no reason why I can't do both at the same time. And it's a great way to basically get more out of your 24 hours. Shout out to Molly May. And you'll see here a few meetings. If I have a block, then I'll get some admin tasks done, like replying to messages from my clients, or getting small things that don't need that kind of deep work done, like integrations, automations, that sort of thing. Finish off with some client calls. And then what I'll do is I'll make sure that I finish my day at about 8:30 latest, because what I've realized is that sleep is so important, and actually having downtime as well, to be able to see your friends, to be able to go out for dinner, to be able to protect your afternoon is so good. I used to get into this grind set of thinking, okay, what I need to do is I need to work until 10 p.m., 11 p.m., get no sleep. But the problem with that is you get really productive 14 hours of your day in, but it ruins the next day and the next day. So what I've realized is that if I finish my work by 8:30 and then I get my to-do list done, then that doesn't matter, because I know the next 6 hours or 5 hours the next morning will be so productive that I can focus there, and I don't have to worry about working to midnight and fucking my sleep, which at the end of the day, sleep is the biggest performance enhancing drug that people don't talk about. So that's the system that I use. That's the day that I have. And that's exactly how I've been so productive and I guess scaled the business as quickly as I have.